Have you ever thought that you can just wake up one morning, then you go to an exam room without preparing yourself, and you find yourself passing that exam? If you doubt yourself, worry not. Welcome to this live stream. Today, I want us to talk about how to pass an exam without studying. I want to give you some of the best tips that shall help you to pass any type of an exam without studying yourself. Now, this video is for both the students who are preparing for an exam, and this video is also for the adults that are also preparing for an exam. Now, most of these adults at times they don't have most of the time for them to study. Then, on the other hand, you can find that some of the students they also have no time to study. Mostly, if he or she is studying and he still have other responsibilities to carry out. Like this one is a student maybe who is big enough trying to take care of the younger ones, meaning that is he or she is the eldest. So worry not, I want to give you some of the best tips that you can use to pass any exam without studying, and at the end of the day you come out with the best and the best and the best. So the first tip, number one, I want to give you the 12 best tips. So the first tip that I want to give you for passing your exam without studying is number one, solve the previous questions. Solve the previous questions. For an example, if you are to sit your exams in 2024, then meaning that you have to look at the exams for the other years. Like we have the exams for 2023, we also have the exams for 2024, and you also have the exams, 2023, we also have the exams for 2022, we also have the exams for 2021, all those previous years. So what I'm trying to say is that you should try as much as possible to solve some of those questions, because when you solve some of these questions, you become familiarized with them. You are able to build that confidence on yourself, and you also know you'll also be able to know how you can approach some of those questions. So that is the first tip. Don't take for granted the exams for the previous years. Try to solve those questions. If you solve those questions, the more confident you become. You know, being that you want to get the tips on how you pass this exam without studying, meaning that there were some of those previous years that you didn't have time to study. You're just called, you've registered for an exam, you're called, go and sit for an exam, and still you haven't studied. Now, you have less time to prepare yourself. So this time that you have to prepare yourself, number one, I've said that go get the questions from the previous years. Try to do the questions for the previous years. When you do the questions from the previous years, you become confident within yourself and you are able to tackle those questions. Then number two, you are supposed to revise thoroughly for an exam. If in any case you are to do some of those questions, you are supposed to revise thoroughly. Revise and revise and revise. Revision is the key. Revision is the key. Revise and revise thoroughly. So, if for an example, passing an exam without studying, meaning that you have minimal time, and this minimal time, you want to use it. You want to use the minimal time that you have so that you take a lot of input so that you study. That's why I'm saying that you need to revise thoroughly. Now, we had talked about that part for question one, number one, whereby we had said that you are supposed to solve the previous year's questions thoroughly. You are not just solving the previous questions, but you are also trying to revise thoroughly. Once you solve these questions, you get the answers, you do what? You also revise through them. Aki, how are you? I'm fine. So you also revise through those, you revise through those questions. Okay, you have to revise through the questions, and you also have to solve those questions. Those ones are two different things. There's a difference between revision, you revise after you've done, and there's a difference between revising. You revise after you've done the exact questions. Are you revise daily? Yes, you're supposed to revise daily. Aki, you're supposed to revise daily, simply because you just have less time for you to do an exam. Okay, so number one tip that we've said you're supposed to do, and the number one thing, solve the previous year's questions. Aki, please help me. I'll help you pass your exams, because what I want you guys to have is all of us excelled great in life. Okay, so I've said that the first thing that you need to do, you're supposed to solve the previous questions in order for you to pass the exam without studying. Then number two, you have to revise thoroughly. You have to revise thoroughly. Now, and we've said that you revise after you have solved the previous questions. That is what you mean. You revise after you've solved the previous questions. Who are you? I'm Math Billionaire, but my name is John. Okay, so the third tips that I want to give you in order to pass your exam without studying is that make checklist of repeated questions. Make checklist of repeated questions. Now, you've been trying to revise the past exams. Those past exams questions, when you are revising them, you have to take note of those questions that are repeated each and every time. Because if those questions were repeated on those exams of the previous years, then there's a likelihood of those questions again to be repeated on that exams. So students who revise the previous exams, they have chances of passing, unlike those students that do not revise the previous questions. So as you revise the previous questions, have a checklist, have a pen and a paper where you shall have to write down those questions that are being repeated each and every time. And that one will help you pass your exam without studying. Without studying means that you have the minimal time that it takes for you to do that exams. It's different from that person who have been studying for close to 1 year. You just have less time, like let's say 1 month. So within the duration of 1 month, you have to get the questions for you, yourself, revise the questions thoroughly, solve previous questions. You also have to make the checklist of the questions that are repeating themselves. And the tips that are giving are the ones that are before the actual exams, because you have less time, you have not been studying. Number 4, practice time management with the previous exam papers. Practice the time management with the previous exam papers. That one will make you pass an exam. You practice the time that you are to take in a particular exam. Like, let's say that if this exam is to take 2 hours, are you able to manage the 2 hours with you? If the exam was to take 1.5 hours, are you able to manage the 1.5 hours with the little time that you are having? Okay, so we are saying that you are supposed to practice the management of time with the last year's paper. And the reason as to why I'm saying that is that some of us, or most of us, we are usually confused. You find that there are some papers you don't take adequate time in working them out. In short, you work them out when you are rushing. The keyword is to avoid rushing. We also know that if paper takes the 2 hours, I'm going to sit for a mathematics paper that is going to take 2 hours, then when you practice with other previous papers, you are supposed to reach the 2 hours. So always practice the management with the last year's papers. Always practice the time management. When you are doing the paper for the year 2023, that is mathematics, and you can actually take 2 hours doing it, then you can comfortably take 2 hours doing that paper for 2024. That is what we mean. Then the next point that I want to say, point number 5, find out some of the areas where there are several scores. It depends with the paper, and it also depends with the syllabus. There are some areas whereby the scores are high, and there are some areas where the scores are less. Assume now you are doing 2 papers, you have to check which paper you are going to use most of the energy. Are you going to put in the first paper, that is paper 1, or are you going to put in to the second paper, that is paper 2? So what we are trying to say is that make use of the time, make use of the scoring areas, the areas that you're supposed to score. Okay. Now, then the other point that I want to say, another reason in which you can pass your exam without studying is that you're supposed to follow the teacher's instruction. Follow the teacher's instruction. Let the teacher guide you. Just follow the teacher's instruction. Let the teacher guide you on how you're going to do the paper. If your teacher says that this one is how things are supposed to be, please follow. Be keen. Mostly, if it is the last minute of doing an exam, follow the teacher's instruction. Follow the teacher's instructions to the letter. If the teacher says that such particular subject, there's a number that you're not supposed to work it out, please don't work it out. Okay? So I want to also go ahead and give you some tips on the day for an exam. So on the day for an exam, that actual day, don't hurry. Stick to the time. There is no reward of finishing very fast. Stick to the time that you've been given. That is what you're supposed to do on the day for an exam. Then number 2, on the day of an exam, that day that you're doing an exam, write anything anything you might forget. Maybe as you are reading the question, then there is a point that has popped on your head or on your brain, so you have to write it down before it gets lost. So that is what we mean. Write down anything that you might forget. Okay? So at the same time, you're saying that write the keywords, circle the keywords. You're supposed to circle the keywords correctly. Like for example, the question says write the 2 difference between mitosis and meiosis. The keyword there is difference. Please circle it so that you end up giving out the correct answers on the difference but not similarities. I hope you are getting that. So these ones are some of the tips that I have given you, and I hope that they will be helpful to enable you pass your exams without having to struggle, or without any hard part. So you just move and you do your exams in a nice way. So I want to stop there. So if you found this video interesting, remember to subscribe and give a thumbs up. So let's see each other in our next video, in whereby we shall discuss some other more things to do with education. So I was your host, Math Billionaire. Until next time, bye for now. See you.